just wanted to inform everyone we will be returning next week.
We finally got the Men in Black off of our trail, and we wanted to take another week to lay low just to make sure they are gone.
This week we give our emergency broadcast signal to the podcast.
Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics. So please, listen to them try to explain the unexplainable. While drunk.
You'll hear from us very soon.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Let's Get Drunk and Talk Conspiracy Theories.
Whoa, what's up?
Or a fill-in episode for the podcast Secret Transmission, which talks about all the oddities of the world.
Yes.
Most especially stuff like what we're about to talk about.
Fear
But
you
who the
not.
fuck are we?
Fear you not, the government hasn't taken over your podcast.
You can take your tinfoil hats off.
Yep, it can.
Trump didn't fucking annex Secret Transmission's damn podcast.
He didn't.
Alex Jones didn't come in and muscle them out.
He didn't.
They're just on a little bit of a break.
They are.
We're here to talk about some shit, to fill in for them.
Yes.
And who the fuck are we?
We're, well, I'm Mikey, the murderous. Bushatelli.
Mikey the murderous.
Murderous.
You fucking kill people.
Kill a motherfucker.
You don't actually kill people.
I don't actually do that.
It's kind of like Killer Mike.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders was super happy to find out that Killer Mike doesn't actually kill people when they sat down and talked.
There you go.
I am Dexter the Diabolical. I plot out the murders that you don't actually commit.
Exactly.
As far as the FBI needs to know.
Yeah. Don't
Who is
tell your
also
friend.
with us, by the way?
Oh,
That girl Jen.
That girl, Jen. Jen,
The
that Strangler. Gurleone.
That Strangler Gurleone.
Soon to be that Strangler Bushatelli. You're going to join the Bushatelli clan. We're
Yes.
the Bushatelli twins, otherwise known as the Hilltop Hoochers, otherwise known as the co-hosts of
Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics.
It's a Show Where We...
Get drunk and talk about comics.
Holy fuck, it's all in the name, right?
We also, with the Hilltop Hoochers, make a 200 proof champagne called
We do.
God's Vaginal Secretion.
It's very bubbly.
It is. It's got a lot of bubble to it.
Where is this champagne so I can have some?
Well, you know,
It's in the still out back.
Yeah.
It's fermenting.
it's fermenting. You know how long it takes to make 200 proof champagne?
Look, that shit's it takes some time.
Takes time. It's got to sit.
Yeah. Just trust us. Given on the name already, you know it tastes good.
Yeah. You go.
All right, well, are you ready to?
Let's start the show.
Before we start the show, what are we going to do here?
We're gonna talk about some conspiracy theories.
We're going to talk about the Mandela Effect,
And the
which
simulation
Secret Transmission has actually already talked about the Mandela Effect, but I see some ties to things like you just mentioned
Yeah, the
with simulation theory, and
Yeah.
also the comic book world,
Yeah.
and the ideas of, both in the comic book world and the real world, the multiverse,
Uh-oh.
and ideas of time travel
Uh-oh.
and string theory.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to delve into some things. We don't have any notes in front of us. Going to be very free form, probably a little looser than Secret Transmission actually is and their guest hosts, but we hope you enjoy it. And now, are you ready to?
Let's start the show.
Are you not going to do the noise? You can't not do that.
Exactly.
Let's get drunk and talk comics. Ow, I didn't get that last one.
That's awesome.
Should have said that on the actual recording. That was good high energy. We don't need low energy.
No.
No low. There's real low energy.
Whoa, bro. You're
Whoa,
too
bro.
low.
You're like dude bro Trump.
Dude.
That's your Trump impression.
Trump is so good, bro.
Dude, my hands are so big.
So, we are the co-hosts of Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics. We're filling in for Secret Transmission.
Yeah.
As
Interesting show.
Yes, as Dexter had said, we may be a little more loose than what they are.
Might be a little lit. We recorded our show before we did this one.
We did. So
I noticed at the end of our episode, my words were beginning to slur a little bit, so that may be the case on this show.
Oh shit.
Oh, fuck.
Oh fuck. Podcast on Secret Transmission.
This is going to be Let's Get Drunk and Secret Transmission. That does not work.
That does not work at all. But yo, we're here to talk about some conspiracy theories. One that I do believe in.
Yeah.
Actually, Mandela Effect is pretty convincing.
I was going to say one in particular that's going to lead us to branch out and talk about some other things. But the main focal point here, as I said, Secret Transmission has already covered on the show before. We just want to bring our own opinions about it. Basically, this show is going to be done through the lens of me explaining a couple of things to you guys, because you're not as familiar about some aspects of it. You're going to bring in some of your opinions about some things that you are a little more fluent in. And Jen, you're just going to give opinions where you want to give opinions and just hang out, right?
I've never really, read stuff like that as far as...
You're the most low-key member of our cast. Like, you're just kind of hanging back a lot.
This is all new to me, so...
Well, that's great, because we can get reactions from you,
Yeah.
and I can actually even ask questions to someone who is less versed in this, which works really great for what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. So first, we're just going to dive right into the Mandela Effect.
Let's explain what that is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Tell them what the Mandela Effect is.
So the term Mandela Effect comes from the fact that there is a consensus among a cross-section of the population that there are people who believe that Nelson Mandela died while he was in prison. Now, Nelson Mandela was released from prison quite a few years ago, and he actually died after that. But for some reason, people just really believe they remember seeing reports of this, of him dying while he was in prison.
Yeah, and some people have very vivid memories. They remember the funeral on television. They say they remember seeing it on TV, it being reported on that he died while in prison. Some people have very deep thoughts about this.
I'm going to make noise. I hate to make noise on the show. But
Hey,
I'm
it's
just
okay. You got to get some drinks.
I do. I just gotta. I gotta toss a shot to Jen. You continue to explain what you're explaining.
We got to drink on this show. But, some people, they honestly believe that they remember this happening. So, therefore, the term was coined the Mandela Effect whenever people were stated, people told them he did not die in prison. He did die after being released. And these people believing that they remembered a certain event that happened that did not.
And that's what we want to talk about here, because there's so many different ways to look at this. Now, the idea that that's how a cross-section of the population remembers that delves into theories of the multiverse and time travel and string theory, as I mentioned before. And simulation theory, something you're very interested in. There's also the much more logical view that revolves around sort of Occam's razor, in that the more plausible explanation is probably the case.
We just remembered wrong.
So the fallibility of human memory.
Yeah. And here's the thing. There's a lot of things on Mandela Effect that we can pull up and we can tell you about. Other than the Mandela Effect, the most notable one is the Berenstain Bears.
Yes, I was going to say, it's mostly pop culture references that this actually seems to have to do with.
Yeah, a lot of people remember the Berenstain Bears being the Berenstain Bears.
Yes. And we all pronounce it Berenstain Bears, but what you're referring to has to do with the spelling of it.
Yes. The actual spelling, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I believe it's S-T-A-I-N.
Mm-hmm.
And some people believe it to be S-T-E-I-N.
Which makes a great deal more sense. Now, granted, S-T-E-I-N, that would be Stein, actually, not Stain or Steen.
Yeah, and just as a child, I remember saying the Berenstain Bears. I do remember saying that. Jen says she remembers saying that.
And that is the way it's pronounced.
And that's the way we all remember it. Now, I can't go off on a limb and say, oh, we got an alarm going off.
Holy shit, somebody didn't silence their phone for the show.
Uh-oh, Jen. Fucking up.
I'm gonna correct it, I promise.
So interrupting your rant.
Interrupting my rant, how dare you.
Sorry.
But, no. As a child, I honestly can't say that I remember how it was spelled, because I honestly don't. So I can't really comment on that. What about you? Do you remember it?
This is a very interesting thing, and this was my lead in to, as many people, the sort of ideas of the Mandela Effect. When I first talked to who I was hoping was going to be on the show with us, Kyle Stout, friend of the show, about this was a year or more ago. We come out here to our recording space where we're doing this every Thursday night to play music. Kyle is my writing partner, and mostly we come out here and we don't even play that much music. He calls it Therapy Thursday. We often wind up in these very long-winded discussions, and that's where phrases from our show like circling the wagons comes from, which is probably going to get said a lot in this episode. But that was my first introduction to it, and I found it fascinating. Now, I found it fascinating where some of our friends become a little obsessive about it.
Yeah.
But for the Berenstein Bears thing, essentially the case is we, 3 people being around the age of 31, 32 years old.
I ain't 32 yet.
No, I'm about to turn 32.
I
That's
was
why I
like,
said that.
I know you ain't pointing at me.
No, it's just the way my hands were going. We remember it as being the Berenstein Bears. You said you don't remember the spelling all that much. When I first encountered this, I felt like I do really remember it being Stein. That feels very strong within my mind.
Yeah, it seems like I remember that too. But
Now, many people, once they've been presented with this idea, because we now have the internet and constant connectivity and social media, and these things get spread out more, all those people who believe so fervently that they remember it that way have gone back and found their old copies of this stuff. And as they pulled it out, it says Stein. Stain. To them, that means there's a broader issue going on. That somehow the timeline and the very fabric of our universe has been altered to make it Stain versus, we'll call it Stein, though we pronounce it as Steen.
Do we blame Barry Allen?
Barry went back and fucked the timeline up again.
God damn
Son
you,
of a
Barry.
bitch.
We're all living in Flashpoint.
Jesus Christ. Stop fucking up the timeline, Barry.
No, but, aside from us making a comic book joke, there are other things with the Mandela Effect that people also believe. One here recently that I thought I remembered. Now, do I have any proof of it? Well, no, because I thought I just remembered hearing it on the news, but I didn't. Fidel Castro died recently.
And you believed he was already
I
dead.
thought he was already dead. I could have swore that I remembered hearing it on the news.
And in the public consciousness, that was a thing. I did see a lot of people saying that. They weren't aware that he wasn't dead already. They really thought that. Did you see people pointing back to a specific event and time?
No, I don't remember just seeing a whole lot of people saying it, but I feel like I remember hearing it on the news that Fidel Castro had passed away. Now, did he? Apparently not. But a lot of people do believe that they had already heard that he was dead. So, I mean, that's one right there. And also another one that is kind of out there as well is the J.C. Penney thing. Some people believe J.C. Penney to be, of course, J.C.P.E.N.N.Y. And some people believe it to be J.C.
E-Y, right?
P.E.N.N.E.Y.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought that it was different. Now, me personally, I don't know. I haven't shopped at Penny's a lot. I don't know.
I feel like it's EY, but I could actually be wrong. It may be a Y. I don't know.
And there's the same thing with the Oscar Mayer. A lot of people believe it to be, is it M-A-Y-E-R?
It's M-E-Y-E-R, is it not?
I don't know. I mean, there's a spelling thing.
I feel like I
there with a lot
remember
of
the song.
people.
It's M-E-Y-E-R. But I could be wrong. It may be an A.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
And I
the
can't
thing.
tell you how many times as a kid that Oscar Mayer hot dog vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call that thing.
The hot dog mobile, bro.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Get your shit together. It's a
That
goddamn
shit came
hot
to the
dog.
school all the time.
Yeah. It's a goddamn hot dog. What else would you call it?
So that starts us off right off before we even delve too much into things about the fact that we're a little bit more skeptical anyways. You a little bit less. You get into some of these conspiracy theories.
So with the Mandela Effect, what I believe is if there are things changing perhaps it drives over a little bit more into simulation theory, where simulation theory is that we are living in a computer simulated world similar to what we've seen in The Matrix, the movie The Matrix. Now, yes, The Matrix is fictional. It was a movie made by now the Wachowski sisters.
The Wachowski siblings.
No, they're the sisters now. They're both
transgender?
Yes.
I was under the impression only one of them was.
Both of them now.
Okay.
The
I
Wachowski
was not aware of that.
sisters.
Are
now.
you sure you're not being Mandela affected right now?
I watched a video about the Matrix being rebooted, and they called them the sisters.
Okay.
But
I'll give you that one.
But anywho, they
Hemingway's
circling the wagons back around.
As we're gonna have to do a
That's
lot.
interesting though. But okay, go ahead.
But they made this movie up, but it's similar to that we do live in a computer simulation controlled by machines.
Which I do have to go ahead and poke a little bit of a hole in, and this is not an original thought for me. I've seen it elsewhere, but we would not make very good batteries. As far as human beings being a battery for a civilization created by and populated by robots, the way our bodies work, we have to ingest a certain amount of calories to create energy to do the things we do already.
Well, do you know how the Matrix feels that? They say that once a person dies, they are liquefied and fed intravenously to the living.
That still doesn't make sense.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just telling you. You.
Well, I'm just saying that's bullshit.
Yeah. But anyways, I believe that I won't say that I disbelieve in the simulation theory, but I will say that a little bit of the couple of things that I do believe about the Mandela Effect. If you think that things are being changed, if you feel like things are not as you remember, perhaps there is a glitch in our simulation. I won't say in the Matrix, because I don't like to refer to the simulation theory as the Matrix.
Well, I think in the pop culture lexicon, false memories have really become attributed to, as we call it, a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, I just don't like saying that, because the Matrix was made up by somebody. The Matrix is a movie. The Matrix is something that somebody created. So I don't too much care to like to call it a glitch in the Matrix. I like to say a glitch in the simulation. And I feel like if things are changing and you are specifically remembering them as something, because I've never met anybody specifically. Now, Blair says that she believes in the simulation. I mean, in the Mandela Effect. But she
and Blair, we were also hoping to have on tonight.
Yes.
Unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, she couldn't make it. But
Yeah.
Blair is super into conspiracy theories.
She is. And
So
I
we're
wish
hoping to do
I
another
wish she could have
episode
been
like
here.
this at some
Yeah.
point.
I wish she could have been here to talk about it, but she wasn't. But I mean, I don't know if she has any hardcore fallout proof of things that she believes that have changed. Now, I don't know that. I can't say.
Well, I think inherently the way that it works, you can't have proof.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know if she remembers anything differently other than pretty much I know that her and Jacob both remember hearing about Fidel Castro dying before he actually did die. And so, I mean, I just kind of feel like that if you believe in the Mandela Effect, why can you not believe in the simulation theory that, you know, that somebody just changed something? You know, that's just how that is. And, I mean, I feel like that with the simulation theory, I don't believe that we have been put in a simulation by machines. I feel like the simulation theory is actually something that has happened by an advanced civilization, a group of advanced civilization beings, whether it be aliens or whether it be whatever. Just an advanced civilization has contacted us, and this is the way that it went down. Because sometimes there are strange things that go on. Sometimes.
So are you telling me right now that you believe we live in a simulation?
Yes.
Created by other beings?
Yes. I feel like that right now.
You believe that the real world you're living in is not the real world?
No, not at all. I feel like that we're in a simulation of some sort. Will we ever be able to break out of the simulation? I don't know. Because it's I mean, that's the thing. If we're living in a simulation, how would we know to break out of it if others don't believe the same? You know, that's just a far thing. You know, I don't believe that it I can't believe that I can't show you that it's real, but I can't show you that it's not real either. It almost...
Well, that breaks into a lot of discussions of like religion and things like that.
And I mean,
and in a sense, is Christianity not sort of a simulation theory in and of itself?
It makes you act a certain way. And I mean, I hate to, as I stated, I don't like to call it the Matrix, but the Matrix does raise a bunch of good points. I mean, have you ever had a dream that was so real? How would you... What if you were unable to awake from that dream? How would you tell the dream?
Well, and that's something I want to comment on, actually. So before I roll back to the Berenstein Bears thing, I want to talk a little bit about the fallibility of human memory. I have a very distinct memory that I have had to call into question. When I was young, my stepfather's stepfather, we're already getting a little complicated here, owned a ranch here in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. They had lots of animals. They had horses, mostly a lot of deer that they had on a particular area of property that were fenced off. They also had a lot of water areas that we went to fish on as a kid. Mm-hmm. I have a distinct memory of the pen that we were told specifically to stay out of, myself and my sister going into it. Now, my sister is the same age as me. She's actually my stepsister, but we grew up together. I remember going into that pen. And mind you, that pen opens up to a much larger fenced-off area. I remember going in there and getting chased by a buck. A male deer. We're talking about what hunters refer to as like 10 points and things like that. A large male deer. Now, they can be very aggressive. So I have a distinct memory of us running away from one. And I remember so many details about this. I remember that they had this, in this smaller fenced off area, this spot where there was a couple of sheds and things to go around. I have this distinct memory of cutting around the corner of this one shed within the fenced off area. So there's shed and there's fence. I remember running through that, running away from this buck, and it hitting the fence. I remember the image of the fence bowing out. And I remember us barely getting to that fence door and getting out and getting it closed and getting away and telling each other, we can't tell mom and dad about this. It's so ingrained into my brain that it's hard to not accept it as reality. And yet at the same time, my sister has no recollection of this. Now, there are a couple of things that this could be. One, it could be a suppressed memory for her. She doesn't remember it because it was so traumatic. When things that happen to us that are very traumatic, we tend to suppress those memories and not remember them. Now, it's been argued a lot that recalled memories through psychology could either be a repressed memory or a false memory. She doesn't remember this at all. I remember it very vividly. Now, I'm a middle-of-the-road person, and I like to believe maybe my memory is embellishing it a bit, and she is just totally writing it off, and maybe it's something more in between. But there's no way for us to know. We didn't tell our parents about this. So it's only a memory between the two of us. She doesn't remember it at all. I remember this intensely detailed, vivid situation.
But what they say a memory is you remembering what you remember.
Exactly. That's the thing about human memory. Every time we recall something, we actually alter that memory. Your brain, as you recall events, changes the events. We know that through studies through psychology. So that's a big hole before we even get into the broader ideas of the Mandela Effect, which I still find to be interesting and I'm not totally writing off. But the question is, are our memories all that trustworthy? We know that detectives and judges and lawyers say that one of the least one of the points of evidence that you can't stand by really more than anything is eyewitness accounts because of the way that we remember things.
Yeah.
So that's the big question about the Mandela Effect. Was reality changed? Or are we just misremembering?
I mean, I just don't... I mean, like I said, I kind of feel like that if... I can't say that our human memories are fucking perfect because we know good and well that they're not.
Human.
But I feel like that maybe it's just, like I said, maybe it's just a glitch. Maybe there's something going on with the simulation and it has changed. What about all these people that we say that have fucking disappeared out of nowhere? We just don't have any more contact with them. Not that they've come up, now they're considered missing, but none that where we consider foul play. We just know that.
So like the Rust face.
Yeah, he's just missing. We don't know where he's at.
We do everything in memory of him. He's not dead to our knowledge. He's just not on Twitter anymore.
Exactly. But not like that. But like actually like people that have just vanished that nobody like. Okay,
Amelia Earhart would be a good example of
yes,
that.
and here's another one. My uncle told me this before he died. He passed away from cancer, but my uncle, he was uncle by marriage. He told me this. He said, "Hell no, that beer." But my uncle told me this. He said this to me specifically. He told me that I believe it was his sister. If I'm mistaken, it may be his sister-in-law, but nonetheless, some kind of relation. But he said that one day she just up and vanished. She didn't call anybody and tell them that she wasn't coming home. She didn't tell them that she's not, that she left or she went on vacation or nothing. Just one day, they hadn't heard from her.
They just weren't there anymore.
And they went to their house. She wasn't there. All of her things were, but she wasn't. She was just gone. And they hadn't heard from her or seen from her or heard anything about her for 10, 15 years. And to this day, they still haven't heard from her. She is just missing.
That begs such broader questions, actually. One of our stylists, for context, I'm a hairstylist at a salon that I run. One of our stylists actually was telling me about two very prominent Jackson, Tennessee stylists who just up and went missing one day. Now, the speculation is, of course, they ran off together, but they just disappeared, and no one knows where they went. So, yes, the logical view is they ran off together, or something nefarious happened.
But see, that's the thing. The girl that I have the story of her coming up missing, she had no known enemies. She wasn't dating or messing around with anybody to anyone's knowledge.
Just disappeared.
Just disappeared. Nope. Sounds like we...
Yeah, we have a visitor, by the way, for the show.
Dude, that does not sound like Jim.
I know, that's not Jim. But we have to give a particular greeting anytime the train goes by, because we record next to a train. We call it Jim. It was created by Decepticons.
Yes.
To ruin our show with its glorious Jerry curl. You can find it at Jim the Train. THA for
That
the...
is a weird fucking horn.
That's not Jim.
Yeah, it's a different one.
We have another train antagonizing us now.
Is it?
Maybe it's his girlfriend.
It does sound a little more feminine.
It does.
Maybe reality has been changed.
Well, here's to Jim or Jimina.
Jimina.
Or whatever we want to call it.
Joanna.
Cheers to the train.
Yeah, there you are, sir. Or madam.
Regardless, you were talking about a missing persons case.
Yeah, so, and this is my own personal thought. I don't know if anybody else has had this, but what if that person had been enlightened somehow? What if that person had been unplugged from what pop culture will call the Matrix? What if that person has escaped this simulation that we live in? By what means, I'm not sure of, because
Well, and that's not too
thought.
far off from what conspiracy theorists believe, in that if you know too much, you'll get taken off the grid.
Yeah, but I mean, these people are thinking that these folks got killed or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
think that they've been murdered. I feel like that they've just been, that they're on a higher plane than us. That they know the truth, so therefore they're no longer part of this world that we call reality.
That's definitely an out there view.
Yeah.
I want to pull it back a little bit first
Okay.
before we delve back into that. And we're pressed for time, so we're only going to be able to record so much here. But when we go back to the Berenstain Bears thing, the Berenstain Bears was a children's book series that got made into a series of cartoons as well, that was written by a couple by the last name Berenstain. Their son caught wind of this whole thing with the difference in the spelling and all that, and he got onto an online forum where people were talking about this. And he said, I find this fascinating. This is who I am. I'm the son of the original couple that wrote these books. I find this all to be very interesting. And he provided points of, proof to show he was who he was. But he wound up saying, I think this is interesting, but for all of my life, it's always been spelled Stain. We pronounce it Steen, but it's always been spelled that way. Well, this guy came back later and wound up showing that through genealogy and finding and tracing his family roots, that actually it had been spelled Stein, or Steen for that matter, at one point. So he actually told them, that it actually was changed at one point when my family first immigrated here.
Mm-hmm.
So that adds so much more of an interesting element to this.
Yeah.
Do I believe in the greater theories of the Mandela Effect and alterations of time in the fabric of the universe? No, I always go back to Occam's razor. Like, whatever's the simpler explanation is probably what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting that their names were changed when they immigrated to this country, and that certainly feeds the conspiracy theory. Oh, does that mean that somebody went back and changed it, and maybe changed it at a point before we expected?
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, whenever you go into that, if you believe that something has been changed, how can you not believe in part of the simulation theory? Because how could all things be changed? Like, okay, you've got the Berenstain Bears book. You looked at it.
Yeah.
You remember it saying EIN. You remember that so clearly. And then you go back, you run to your trunk where you got all your books stored away. You throw it open, you pull out the book, and it's STAIN. How can you explain without the simulation theory that this has been changed on a broad purpose? How can you say that? I mean, because you have to be living in some form of a universe where things can be changed so frequently. I mean, like, and without a simulation theory, there's no way to believe that it has been changed. If you believe Nelson Mandela died in prison, but then you go back and you see that he actually got out of prison, was released, and died years later, how can you explain that your thought had not been changed without a simulation of events happening?
That begs a good question, though. Is what we see real? And we were all raised in the 90s, and we were all raised on the belief of, don't trust everything you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, now the internet is just this extrapolated version of that.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger, and so we see that now where people actually share legitimate misinformation.
Yeah. And
So
there's both.
how can you find proof in any way? And I didn't mean to interrupt you. What did you want to say?
I was just saying there's always stuff on the internet saying that this celebrity died, but they really didn't. Or,
Yes.
You know, it's all the time. And it's
There's an old
always-
quote: the spread of information increases the spread of misinformation, and the internet is very much indicative of that.
The Matrix always has the movie always had lots of good ways of explaining things. As I stated, I always hate to call it a Matrix, but that movie had so many interesting thoughts in it that it just makes you go back
Makes
to
you
it,
think.
because it's like, like you said, how do we know it's real? And they said, how do you define real? If real
What
is
is
you can,
reality?
Yeah, if real is what you can feel, smell, taste, or touch, then real is nothing more than electrical impulses interpreted by our brain.
Oh, and that's literally all it is.
Yeah.
Because all we are as a person is electrical impulses running across neurons.
Like, remember whenever they were fighting in that fight simulation after he learned all the, jujitsu and kung fu, and Morpheus leaned into him and he goes, "You think that's air you're breathing now?"
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing with the villain that betrays them.
Agent Smith.
No. The guy that's part of
Cypher.
the group, Cypher.
Yeah.
He's eating the steak, and he says, "I know that this program is telling me this is good." He says at the end, "Ignorance is bliss."
Ignorance is bliss, yeah.
As he eats the steak.
Exactly.
Of course, there's a big hole there of like, who the fuck plugged him into the Matrix?
Well,
That's a hole we'll never really get explained.
yeah.
But that makes a lot of good points about what is real and what isn't real.
Yeah.
But I think that rolls back into the question of what is reality. And I mean, for me, it's, you get called a sheep when you just accept things as they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just accept things as they are, but I do accept the world around us as reality.
Yeah.
So, that may be that I'm just in the Matrix, or I'm in a simulation theory, or I'm in a whatever. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I feel like the things I can touch and feel are the real world. We will never know, possibly not even after passing away from this world, if that's the case or not. But I feel, at the end of the day, that what I can see in front of me is real. I know that you are real. I know that Jen is real. I know that Levi Little, who has joined us, is real. Realest of the real. Real motherfucker over here.
Yeah.
I'm real.
We're not even gonna lie. Levi's smoking pot over here, and I'm about to do something too.
There you go.
I hope Secret Transmission's
Levi,
okay
do you
with that.
have any thoughts on the ideas of the Mandela Effect and simulation theory? Because that's kind of what we're going into and talking about here.
I was listening to what you said. I agree with it. About we might never know, so we might, I don't know, just enjoy life for what it is. Let some things just remain mysterious.
Well, that's an idea right there. I mean, even if there's the possibility that it's not real, is it... The question there is it better to question our world or just enjoy it as it is?
And see, that's the thing.
You can do both, I think.
That's the thing.
Yes. And I'll let him say that, and I have a thing to say about that, but go
And the
ahead.
thing about it is that I'm not going to let it fuck up my life because I think that I may be living in a simulation. Nonetheless, even though that I feel that we may be living in a simulation as we speak, I'm still going to enjoy my life.
You're
And
unfortunately in it either way.
I'm in it. I don't know how to escape it. But the fact of the matter still remains. I'm still going to do this podcast. I'm still going to go watch Beauty and the Beast tonight. I'm still going to wait till October and get married to Jennifer. All these things are still going to happen, even though that I feel that it may be a simulated universe. I'm in it, so therefore I must live it. I don't know a way of escaping, and if I did know a way of escaping, I would share it with people so they could escape as well.
Well, actually, before I even go into that, does that not beg bigger questions of what is reality to you?
I mean, in all of what you want to call reality, there's no way to figure it out. Nobody has proposed anything else to where they have been unplugged and they've came back to free other people. There's no other way of telling me that you are no longer in the simulation, you are out of it, and you are now viewing people within this simulation. Nobody has proposed this, so therefore we are stuck.
Actually, someone has proposed this.
Who?
There was a scientist and a psychic who actually tried to prove this. I learned this from a Radio Lab episode. They did. Supposedly, he came back and said something to her. There was a big news story, but then at the end of the day, it was deemed that this probably wasn't real. And I mean, how can you prove that anyways? You know, there's no way to, and it doesn't make sense to even try to. But yeah, the thing that interests me about conspiracy theories like this is that it begs bigger questions that are bigger than us about beyond even quantum physics and quantum theory and ideas of the multiverse, and we haven't even gotten into the comic book side of that, and I hope we get a couple of minutes to do that before we end, because it's a fill-in episode and our show's about comics and we want you to come check out our show. Yeah. Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics.
Yeah, get on over.
But the whole thing begs to me the question of what is reality?
And I was going to say also on that part, what I've always been curious about is there's been several times where I will be sleeping and like reality and the dream will like collide.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that this dream is real. Like I'm actually awake and talking and and I think it's real. And then I wake up and it's like...
I actually am on the firm belief that
because
our dreams...
I know at one particular instance that happened to me, I was asleep and he was on a separate shift as me. And I was asleep that night. And I remember a knock at the door.
I love how southern you are there. I remember
a knock at the door, and I remember him coming in, taking his shoes off from work, and I was trying to talk to him, but I couldn't talk or move. I couldn't do nothing. Like I was trying to talk, but it wouldn't come out.
Okay, actually...
Like I was mumbling something through my nose, but I couldn't...
I'm leaning forward because I want to ask a question about this. Uh-huh. This is a dream you were having.
Obviously, because it wasn't real.
Was he actually coming in?
No, he was still at work.
Okay, can I tell you a dream that I have occasionally?
Yeah.
And I find this to be fascinating. Occasionally, and it's usually if I fall asleep on a couch or something. Now, the way that your sleep works, insanely complicated. There's REM sleep and the other form of sleep that we view, as far as scientifically. REM sleep is your deep sleep. The other one is you're kind of in between. You're not awake, you're not asleep, you're just sort of in between. That's your more disturbed type of sleep generally. I have this thing where I get this sleep paralysis.
That's exactly what I get.
That's what I was wanting to ask you.
Yes.
So if you fall asleep on the couch,
you
feel like
move,
essentially that your eyes opened and that you're actually viewing the real world, but in the dream, everything else but your visual is in your head.
No, actually,
but just the visual.
I was actually seeing him taking his shoes off.
Well, that's the thing. That's where they differ.
But I couldn't move or talk.
What I have happen sometimes, and it's terribly frightening. I'm staring at the side of the couch that I'm sleeping on or whatever. And in my head, I'm getting up. I'm moving. I know I'm moving around the room or whatever I'm in at the time. But my sight won't change. And there's a major anxiety and like a freak out over that.
Yes.
Because two things in my brain are not aligning.
And also,
I'm seeing one thing and I'm experiencing another thing, and it freaks me the fuck out.
Do you start
and
not
that's
being
the
able
only
to breathe too?
There's an anxiousness.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I can't breathe, but there's a like freak out going on.
I guess that's what it is. It's a freak out because whenever I finally wake up from this dream and I can't move or breathe, it's like
there's a lot of anxiousness after that. Yes.
Gasping for air.
And I do that. Like, I don't have a lot of your traditional nightmares, like monsters and shit. It's just like, for me, it's like real world situations usually.
That's me too.
It's usually ex-girlfriends and shit. But yeah, I get that one where like, I'm asleep on the couch, I can only see one spot. I know I'm standing up and moving around, but I can only see this one still image. And that's where the logical part of me is like, okay, I'm asleep, but my eyes are opening. So I'm seeing this one spot on the couch, but my brain is doing an entirely different thing and experiencing that.
Okay, so let me give you some dreams that I've had.
Yeah, go for it. 'Cause that's a great thing to talk about, since that's really what we're talking about here.
So let me tell you about these dreams that I've had. These dreams are about deceased people in my life. The first one is my grandfather. My grandfather passed away in 2004. Shortly after, I had a dream about him. It was not shortly after. It was about a year or two later. I had a dream about my grandfather. I dreamed that, and this is a very strange dream, and it's a very strange understanding of the dream, and it's so weird. So, everyone in my family, we are at a house that is burned to the ground. This house no longer stands.
Already burned to ground before that?
Yes, before. Before this dream took place, this house had been burned down and a new one had been built in its place. But in my dream, we are at the house before it burned. We're all sitting there, and we are all aware that my grandfather has passed away. But for some unknown reason, this is very strange, he has come to visit us from the grave. He's come to visit us. So we're all standing there and we're all talking. It's like a family reunion. Everybody's come to see him, because he's come to visit for a short time. So in my dream, I'm sitting on the floor by my grandfather. He's sitting up on a couch. So in my dream, and in real life actually, whenever my grandfather used to sit, he used to sit with his hands on his knees. And of course you guys can't see me, but I've got both of my hands on his knees, and he used to sit like this all the time. So in my dream, he's got his hands on his knees, and I go to reach to touch him. Like I'm getting ready to touch his hand to see if he's real. And whenever he does, in the dream, he grabs my hand like this. And I used to call my grandfather Paw Paw. That's what we used to call him. And I go, "Oh man, Papa, I miss you so much." He said, "I miss you too, son." And I said, "I love you." He said, "I love you too." And at that time, I woke up. And I woke up with my hand like this, like it had grasped another hand. And I woke up, and it felt like a hand had just moved from mine. Like I woke up like this. And it felt like, a hand had just moved. And I was never able to explain it. It was so weird. So, I just, whatever, dream, went on about my business. So then I had a friend. Her name was Tara. Tara passed away due to a car accident. Her brain stem had swelled. She pretty much became a vegetable. Therefore, they unplugged the life support and let her pass. In the dream, yet again, I had another dream very similar to the one that I just spoke of. But we were at the Milan High School. Because I went to high school with Tara. She graduated a year after me and Jen. So I had a dream that for some reason, yet again, she was coming back to visit. We knew she had passed. She was coming back to visit us. So we were at the high school, and I remember seeing her in this dream. She ran up to me, and she embraced me. It was a hug. So we hugged each other. And I go, "My God, Tara, we miss you so much." And she was like, "I miss you guys too." And I was like, "Man, we love you and we miss you." And she was like, "Oh, I love and I miss you guys too." And at that time, I woke up, and I woke up like I was hugging somebody. I woke up with my arms wrapped around like I was giving somebody a hug. And I felt like, whenever you hug somebody, how you feel it on your chest. And I woke up from that, feeling that. And those are the only two dreams that I've ever had to that manner. And I've never been able to explain them. So my question is what are these feelings that I felt? how do you explain such things as a feeling on your hand like you've had somebody touch you, the feeling on my chest like I have hugged somebody?
Here's where the skeptical part of me comes out. Because I've had those. My stepfather passed away very suddenly when I was young. So he passed away when I was 12. When I was either 12 or 13, I remember it, again, so vividly, this dream. Okay, you've seen my room at my mother's house. I'm living at my mother's house before I get a house right now. So, you know, the layout of it. It's, you know, one end of the house to the other. So that's the two window areas. I remember going back to the closet in a dream, not in reality. There's a storm going on in the dream. I remember lightning flashing as I'm looking out that window and my stepfather, who had passed away, staring dead at me. Now, I've had a lot of dreams about my stepfather. And all of them were weird. None of them freaked me out as much as that one. That was not the first one. I had quite a few where he just, especially since my mother has remarried, I have another stepfather. And he's a good dude. Man, everything worked out so much better there. But there's these dreams I would have when they first got together, and even still to this day, like every once in a blue moon. Paul was the name of my stepfather. He just suddenly comes back. And for me, when I have the dream, the question is, where have you been? Like, we had a funeral. You're dead. But in that dream world, in my mind, I'm asking that question and I'm getting no answer. He's, you know, there's just nothing. He's just, don't worry about it. Your kind of typical movie answer in a mystery like that. That's the dream where he was standing in the driveway, like in the lightning flash, and he's just staring up at me. Like on a surface level, that's the one that freaks me out the most. On a deeper level, those ones where he's just back and there's that lack of an explanation, those are the ones that bother me the most. And you are talking so much about simulation theory in this. Are those glitches in the code of our existence? Is that what our dreams are? Because I always lean on the logical. Yeah, our dreams are just our subconscious where we're not dealing with things. Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if they are something deeper? What if they're a tap into the multiverse?
What if into the real world even?
Because, I mean, some of your dreams don't even make sense. So, I mean...
None of our dreams make sense if
Well, I
you
mean,
really
you know what I
kind
mean,
of
though.
stop
I mean,
to think about it.
Like, what if that dream is what actually is happening in the real world? He is out of the simulation. And that's the only way they can contact us, is whenever we're sleeping.
Is that what ghosts are?
Well, remember what I mean.
I mean, that sort of goes into that question.
Yet again,
Yeah.
I hate to quote the Matrix, but nonetheless, I have to.
Stop quoting the goddamn Matrix, Mikey.
She clearly, the Oracle, she clearly said, she said, anytime you've heard people say they seen a ghost or an angel or a vampire or a UFO or a demon, that's a program doing something that it's not designed to do. It's creating a glitch because it's doing something that it's not designed to do. So therefore, you see something that we can't prove isn't real or not. Because have I seen things that I didn't believe that I couldn't explain? Of course I've experienced things that I can't explain. We've experienced something together that we can't explain. There have been things going on that we cannot put our finger on as to what happened. We clearly, one night, we went to get groceries. It's 4 in the goddamn morning, people. 4 in the morning.
Because you were working a weird schedule at the time.
So it's 4 in the morning. We say we're going to go get groceries because we don't want to fucking deal with it tomorrow. So we go, we get groceries, we come back home. We are getting the groceries in the house. She think she sees something. She doesn't say anything to me till we get in the house. After I close and lock the door, make sure that we're safe, I told her,
Lock the entity in with you.
No. I think I've seen something outside of the house.
Oh, okay.
We're going to get groceries
we're going to
out
get
of the
groceries
car.
out of the trunk. We're making, 2 trips. We've got half of it. We bring them in. We set them down. We go back. We get the other half. Bring in, set them down. She says, "Hey, I think I seen somebody over there at that house across the street from us, just standing there." Well, after we're locked in and we're good, I said, "I think I saw that too." Now, did we actually see somebody? Well, I don't know. I didn't fucking check it out. They're outside. I'm inside, locked in. I've got 2 guns.
I thought I was just tired because I seen it and then I turned around and I didn't see it. So, I thought I was just crazy.
But, I feel that I seen it too. So, that raises the fact, are we seeing things that aren't there?
Yeah, well, we have to circle the wagons back around because you guys have a little less than 10 minutes left. But, yeah, that's the whole thing here. And we've been on the skeptical side, even though you put a lot of stock into some of this stuff. But the whole idea here is that this Mandela Effect and also things like simulation theory and stuff, it really falls on, as I said, the infallibility of human memory, but also this is such a broader topic that I really want to do another show on, actually.
We should.
We didn't get
it's a
enough
lot
time to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's these broader ideas of how the human mind works. And we don't understand how the human mind works. In 2017, we're getting better ideas. We've had so much research into it, but we still don't understand. All we are is electrical impulses running across gaps of neurons. That's it. That's what a neural pathway is.
Mm-hmm.
The pathway determines what that electrical impulse winds up doing, whether it's an involuntary reaction like your heart beating, or like I'm doing with the way that I talk with my hands, or the actual words coming out of my mouth. They all go different places. But that's energy. And the way that energy crosses our brains, while we may understand on an electrical level what that is, we don't know why the fuck it does what it does. So all these things, that's on the very logical, like I said, Occam's razor side on why our brains are the way they are, but we also know that there's all these other dimensions that we can't even see or process or understand. The world is so much bigger than we can get. It's just in what our brains are.
Here's what I think we should do. Since we don't have a lot of time, I feel like we should bring it around to a close. But I think
have a part 2.
I think special transmission
We need
has
more talk on
inspired
this.
me. And I think that next week we should go ahead and plan it with Blair, plan it with Kyle, Jacob, Levi, if you want to be involved.
Just do
All
something
plan it.
anyways.
Next week, Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics is going to switch over and be Let's Get Drunk and Talk Conspiracy.
It's a special episode.
It's a special episode. I
I'm
think
okay
we
with
ought to
that.
do it.
Yeah,
I think we should,
I think
because
we should.
unfortunately we have to
Have
end.
so many
But there
different,
again, we're going to have so many people, but B, there's so many things that all of us want to talk about. That would be a test pilot episode for something going forward, and if people like it enough, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
But we would talk about a lot of conspiracy
Right.
theories within that, because there's more than this. I want to talk more about just the Berenstein Bears
Yeah.
thing.
I want
to talk about Shazam
I want to
slash Kazam.
I want to talk about the Men in Black theory.
I would love to talk about
Yeah.
that.
Something I've been reading up on here lately.
All this shit with chemtrails and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm interested in learning more about chemtrails because I've never
I don't
even.
think they're really anything.
Well,
But I don't know. I don't know the research on
I
it.
don't know. Talk to Blair. I don't know. It's pretty
Yeah, don't
convincing.
talk to Blair on that. Do your own
You're
research.
totally right. I seen one today. As we were
We saw an X symbol before you showed up.
See,
All
how
right.
do you explain that?
We got way off from the Mandela Effect,
We did.
but does anybody have any closing thoughts about how they feel about the unseen world, as we'll call it?
I feel that it's possibly real, unknown if it is, but I'm telling you, tune in next week to Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics, because we're doing Let's Get Drunk and Talk Conspiracy.
Yeah, I think
And
I'm
also tune into Secret
Yeah,
Transmission.
and definitely listen to more Secret Transmission, because I'm sure they've covered this topic before. If you haven't listened to them before, fucking get to listening.
All right, Jen, final thoughts.
I'm not very familiar as far as, researching this information, but I think I'm going to, because now I'm really curious.
The Mandela Effect's fascinating.
I mean, it really is.
Even though the episode is Mandela
just-
Effect, we didn't talk much. I wish we had.
Well, like I said, there's been things that happen to me, and I can't explain it.
We have to do a Shazam Kazam episode, like I said.
Okay.
Levi, do you have any final thoughts about conspiracy series?
Wow. And there he goes.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories.
Oh, I was doing it at the end of the other episode, but let's wrap this up.
I don't really.
Really?
I'm just hungry. My stomach's
Yeah.
grumbling a little
Have
bit.
no,
Okay.
no.
Nothing about conspiracy theories at all? Nothing?
Like JFK or something?
Just anything. Levi has no opinions.
Yeah, no. I'm a sheep.
Well, do you want to wrap this up and tell people who we are and what we are and where you can find them?
I'm Mikey the Murderous. You
I'm
are.
Dexter the Diabolical.
And this is.
That girl, Jen, that strangler, Gurleone. God, that's
And
a
you
lot.
don't have a fancy name, but
Levi.
I'm Levi.
it's Levi Little
Levi.
of Water the Buffalo.
So yeah, we're Let's Get Drunk and Talk Comics. We're on Facebook, YouTube,
On the motherfucking
on the
internet.
motherfucking internet. Look us up, and you can get at us on Twitter. I'm at Mikey is pissed. You are at Jealous of Regis.
Yep.
And just come check our show out. We are doing a special takeover episode for
Secret Transmission.
Secret Transmission. And they're all about some motherfucking conspiracy theories, which we love. But tune in for us next week to our show, and we're going to do Let's Get Drunk and Talk Conspiracies.
And tune into Secret Transmission again, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, of course. And they'll give you some more conspiracy shits to believe in.
Yeah. If you want to know about Obama being in Trump's microwave, that's a thing apparently.
Wow. Didn't know that.
He's watching him.
I guess.
All right. Well, you done?
I'm done.
You done?
Salutes.
Yes.
Salutes.
Salute.
Salutes. Everybody out.
Deuces.
Ready to say goodbye, Roger.